Clint Eastwood. You won't believe this one. Picture it. Clint Eastwood. 95 years old. The squint's still there, the cowboy charm's still kicking, and his voice still that low, gravelly rumble you recognize in a second. He's sitting back in his chair during an interview, and someone dares to ask him the kind of question most people tiptoe around. Clint, you've played the outlaw, the cowboy, the cop, the tough guy on screen. But off-screen, which actresses really tempted you? The room goes quiet. Clint leans back, lets that famous pause stretch out just long enough to make everybody twitch. Then he cracks that sly half-smile and says, "Well, at this age, what the hell do I got to lose?" And that's when he does it. He starts talking. Not about guns, not about stunts, not about the movies. He talks about 7 women. 7 women who nearly broke Clint Eastwood's legendary self-control. And the way he tells it? Standing 5 feet from some of these women was a hell of a lot harder than staring down the barrel of a gun. Because here's the truth. Clint Eastwood could rehearse fights. He could fake being shot at. He could jump on and off horses. But nothing in his career prepared him for the way his heart raced when these women looked him dead in the eye. Meryl Streep. He starts with Meryl. Now, when most people talk about The Bridges of Madison County, they call it one of the greatest romances ever put on screen. But Clint? He leans in and admits, "What you saw on camera, that was only half of it." He says every glance she gave him off-screen carried more weight than any line in the script. Her smile? It could tear through every bit of that cowboy cool he worked so hard to keep, and he swears more than once he straight up forgot his lines just looking at her. Clint Eastwood, forgetting his lines. That's how powerful she was. He tells a story about that famous kitchen scene. You know the one? The whole audience was holding its breath, waiting to see if he'd kiss her. And Clint says, "People still ask me if that was acting. Let me tell you it wasn't. That was me trying not to kiss her for real, in front of 100 crew members." And then he drops this little confession. If it had just been me and her, no cameras, no lights, I don't think we'd have finished the day's shoot. Sondra Locke. Next, Clint shifts, and his grin tightens. Sondra Locke, he says, shaking his head. They worked together 6 times. 6 movies. That doesn't happen in Hollywood unless something bigger is going on. He describes her as fire unpredictable, wild, impossible to pin down. On screen, she could switch from vulnerable to fierce in a blink. And off-screen? The lines blurred. Clint admits, half the time, I didn't know if we were acting or not. The chemistry was thick, so thick directors didn't even yell "cut" sometimes because they knew they were watching lightning strike. But fire burns, and Clint admits the sparks off-screen came with smoke. 2 fights, tension, chaos. Still, he says if he could go back, he'd walk right back into that storm. Shirley MacLaine. Then Clint breaks into a grin. Shirley MacLaine, he says. Now she was a firecracker. They filmed 2 mules for Sister Sarah, and Clint says Shirley was unpredictable in the best way. One moment she was dead serious. The next, she was cracking up so hard the crew couldn't keep the cameras steady. Her laugh? Bold, infectious, impossible to resist. He calls her dangerous, not because she was trouble, but because she never played by the rules. She rewrote them. Clint says she kept him on his heels every single day. And here's the kicker. She was trouble, but the kind you'd sign up for twice. Jessica Walter. Clint's smile fades when he gets to Jessica Walter. You remember her from Play Misty for Me, his first time directing. He says she came in like a thunderbolt. Beautiful, intense, and just a little dangerous. Her performance as Evelyn, the obsessive fan, too real. Clint swears that look in her eyes wasn't all acting. She could stare straight through him, peeling back every layer, seeing the things he wanted to hide. Off-screen, she was sharp and witty. On-screen, she was terrifying and irresistible. Clint admits, "There were moments I didn't know where Evelyn ended and Jessica began." And the way he lowers his voice when he says it? "You believe him, Donna Mills?" Then Clint softens. "Donna Mills," he says, with something close to wistfulness. "She was in Play Misty for me too," and Clint describes her as a different kind of temptation. Blonde, glowing, that all-American beauty. He remembers one long day on set. Everyone's tired, tensions are high, and Donna just walks past humming to herself. Nothing dramatic, just a soft tune under her breath. And the entire crew stopped what they were doing, just to listen. Clint grins at the memory. That was Donna. Quiet, unassuming, but magnetic. She didn't need to chase attention, it found her. He admits she had the kind of beauty that could undo you without even trying. And he says keeping his cool around her felt like the hardest job of the day. Sophia Loren. Now, here's where Clint really lights up. Sophia Loren, he says, voice dropping into awe. He never acted opposite her, but maybe that was for the best. He admits flat out, "I don't know if I'd have kept my composure." He'd seen her at Hollywood parties, premieres, and every single time men forgot their names. Hell, he forgot his own. Sophia had that regal presence, that Italian fire. When she walked into a room, the whole place disappeared. And her laugh? Clint calls it low, rich, and dangerous. The kind of laugh that made you want to hear it again, even if it ruined you. He confesses, "If she'd ever crooked her finger at me, cowboy hat or no cowboy hat, I'd have followed her right out the door." Raquel Welch. And finally, Raquel Welch. Clint chuckles, shaking his head. Raquel was pure fire, all curves, all confidence, and not a man alive who didn't feel weak in the knees when she walked by. He never worked with her directly, but he didn't have to. Just being in the same room at Hollywood parties was enough. She didn't enter a space, she claimed it. Men straightened their ties, women adjusted their gowns, because they knew Raquel had just stolen the spotlight. Clint laughs, almost guilty, and says, "Raquel was temptation you didn't even need to catch to get burned by. Just standing close to her was enough to make you forget your better judgment." And that's when Clint leans back, finishes his drink, and with that sly cowboy glint says the line that sums it all up. "I've jumped off trains, been dragged by horses, had guns fired at my head, but the toughest stunt I ever pulled? Behaving myself around these women. And that's the truth. For all the roles, all the action, all the grit, Clint Eastwood admits the real test wasn't the villains or the stunts, it was surviving. The kind of beauty that could make even Dirty Harry forget his lines. So, let me throw it back to you. If you had to stand in front of Meryl Streep, Sophia Loren, or Raquel Welch at their peak, would you have survived with your cool intact? Or would you have folded faster than Clint's poker face? If you loved this little trip down Hollywood's untold memory lane, hit that like button, drop your favorite Clint Eastwood movie in the comments, and stick around. Because there are plenty more stories just like this, where the toughest battles in Hollywood didn't happen on screen, they happened between takes.